The Maryland quarterback battle has little separation.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. The Maryland quarterback battle has little separation, and in my opinion, I think that's a little bit concerning. So we have another scrimmage for Maryland football as evidence to speak for in this quarterback battle. And of course, the number one thing we're going to talk about after a scrimmage is how that quarterback room is looking, because right now we clearly don't have a starter. We don't have a guy that looks like they're separating from the group. But Maryland did have its second scrimmage of spring football. That's one of the best things about spring football are those scrimmages. And this second one was at Coach Loxley's alma mater at Ballou High School in Washington, D.C., right in the city, which is pretty cool for Coach Loxley to kind of put that on and play at Ballou and play at somewhere that a lot of people could watch. It was an open scrimmage. And so it's just cool how Coach Loxley is kind of giving back to the community in a way by playing in different spots. If you remember, our first scrimmage was at Morgan State, and that went well as well. And that was more to showcase Maryland football in Baltimore, and having that joint practice with Morgan State was overall, I think, a good experience for Maryland football. And I think it's just a good community initiative by Coach Loxley to show that he just cares. It's more about football always. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this part of it, but I do like that they're doing this. And don't forget, guys, this weekend is Maryland football's actual real spring game. So that's going to be a big deal. And there's going to be a ton to talk about then, because that's like on TV. We get to really see it. I get to really process it. I can rewatch it as much as I want. I can really dig into the quarterback battle. And we're going to have a better understanding of who's playing well, who goes out there first. But it looks like right now, there has been little to no separation in that quarterback room, and it kind of concerns me because the QB spot this weekend, it was rotated amongst the guys, and different guys did different things, but it was relatively inconsistent in the way that these guys are inconsistent. They're consistently inconsistent, which is not a place that we want to be. And it looks like nobody is sticking out in the quarterback room. It sounds like Billy Edwards apparently ran a lot of the first team units, which is interesting because in my opinion, and if you want to value it or not, I don't think Billy Edwards is our starter. And I like Billy Edwards. I think he's a tough worker. I think he's going to do a lot of good things, and he's a really good player to have on your team because of what he brings with his running ability. And in the red zone, when he had, 3 rushing touchdowns against Michigan, because once you get to the goal line, you can just put him in a QB sneak. It kind of feels like he's Jalen Hurts with that quarterback sneak. And so there's a lot of value that Billy Edwards brings outside of just being a starting quarterback. He can still help your offense in a lot of ways, but I don't really think that him as a thrower is going to be something that we want. But apparently he was taking a lot of the first team reps, which is kind of interesting. I don't know exactly how many. I don't kind of know how they were split exactly, but apparently he ran out there a good amount with the first team offense. And so I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, does he have the edge right now? Is this just more because he's more experienced than Edge and MJ Moore? So a lot of coaches like to do that. They like to just, when there's a quarterback battle like this, they'll just start kind of in the spring part of practice. They'll just throw the guy out there in the first team with the guy that has the most experience, that has given to the most program, that has really deserved to be there, and has been there for a while. And I think that's a big part of why Billy Edwards is out there. I don't think it's a huge tell. It could be a tell. I could be wrong. Maybe he is outplaying them, but I don't know exactly how big of a tell that is. I'll be interested to see what happens in the spring game because there's 3 quarterbacks. And so basically in the spring game, my thought is that one is going to be on his own team, and then the other 2 are going to be on the same team. And so two guys are going to have to split reps while one guy gets a lot of the reps. And so I think that might be a tell. You got to look at all these little things, but that is definitely a thing that could be a tell of how it's going. So maybe Cameron Edge has the lead overall, but it sounded like MJ Morris also mixed in as well in the quarterback rotation, which is to be completely expected. I don't think MJ Morris is completely just blowing it out. He's definitely not, a matter of fact. And it sounded like he did have some throws. I remember there was one online, him throwing to Dylan Wade. Dylan Wade's a different topic conversation. I've talked about him a good amount, but sounds like Dylan Wade's kind of breaking out. I want to see in the spring game. I want to see what he looks like in the spring game and, of course, what he looks like in the fall. But it sounds like Dylan Wade has the potential to be a really good player for us and a really good recruit for us. It sounds like he's going to be that guy that's like, we get to season, it's like, this guy's a dude. Like, this guy's a little bit different with the way he can catch the ball, maybe the way he can separate. We might not miss Corey Dyches. I don't know exactly, but just the way practices are going, the different things I hear, how Coach Loxley talks about Dylan Wade, it does sound like he is going to be a really good player for Maryland football. But like I was talking about with MJ Morris, there were reports that he held the ball way too long, but that could make some sense. He's still getting used to the system. It takes time to be able to process it at the level that you want to. It sounded like he made a lot of off-platform throws because he had to keep getting out the pocket because he was standing in there way too long. But like I said, with the new system, that could kind of make sense if you think about it. Think about when a college quarterback goes to the NFL and they get a complete new system. And I know it's not the same exact thing, but it is similar in a lot of ways because when you get a new system, different terminology, all these different things, different play portions, different route combinations, it's hard right away to respond to those and be able to work the whatever part of the field efficiently and make sure your eyes are where they need to be and this type of look, whether defense is showing you cover 3, cover 2, maybe they're throwing a blitz package at you, whatever it is, it's hard to say or it's hard to process really quickly when you're in a new spot. So I do want to say this. You want to give MJ Morris time. A lot of people thought that he was going to be the one to win this competition, and I still think he has a really good shot at doing it. But the first scrimmage, they said he wasn't particularly impressive, and it sounded like Edwards and Edge did most of the first team reps, but it does sound like Morris is starting to mix in. But he did make some throws, it sounded like. He did make some throws, so he's showing flashes overall. And then Edge had some flashes, but apparently – his accuracy was inconsistent. And if Cameron Edge, here's my thing about Cameron Edge. I like Cameron Edge. I like him as a thrower. I think he's a really good thrower of the football. I think he's a natural thrower of the football. I think he relates to Talia in a lot of ways. He's a little bit bigger, but I think he has that same type of game style where he wants to sit in the pocket and make throws. But if he's not able to throw the ball consistently, it's going to be tough for him to be able to win it because that's kind of something that we're trying to look at for him and be like, that's something that's supposed to separate Cameron Edge, and he doesn't have the running ability that MJ Morris or Billy Edwards has, so we expect him to be more consistent throwing the ball because he's just not going to be able to make the same plays with his legs. I think that's a fair assessment of Cameron Edge. But, of course, just one day of practice. Spring practice is going to be one that we're like – or the spring game is going to be one that is like, okay, what are we looking at right now? How far have these guys come? Who's really on top? And then, so I also want to talk about the inconsistency and just overall how nobody's separating in that room. And it does concern me. It does concern me. Like I talked about, Edge is inconsistent. MJ Morris was inconsistent. They're consistently inconsistent. Billy Edwards. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, someone's got to take this spot. I don't think there's like a pre-deceived guy that Coach Loxley wants. I don't think it's like kind of like one of those quarterback competitions where it's like, it's a quarterback competition, but we all know who's going to win it. Like, I really have no idea. I couldn't sit here and tell you guys who's going to win it right now. Like, I think legit every single one of those guys has a shot. But that also concerns me because you guys know the quote in the NFL. If you don't, it's when you have 3 quarterbacks or when you have 2 quarterbacks or whatever it is, when you have more than one quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. And so that's how I'm kind of looking at us right now. We have a bunch of quarterbacks, and sure, they are talented, and obviously we have quarterbacks, so we technically have a quarterback. But pretty much the quote is just saying that if you have multiple guys that you can go out there, but you might not have one guy that you're like, yeah, that's our dude, you don't have a quarterback. And so that's how I'm kind of looking at it right now for Maryland football. And I want someone to emerge and I want someone to take it. I remember Nick Saban said that last year about his quarterback position. He's just waiting for somebody to take it. And I think Coach Loxley, who did work with Nick Saban at Alabama, of course, Nick Saban's retired now, but I think Coach Loxley's waiting for someone to take that position, to take that quarterback spot and make Coach Loxley make a decision because he's just outplaying the rest of them. And I don't think any of them are doing that. And you got to give it time. But I do think that it is a little bit concerning that I haven't heard anybody just have a good day yet. And it sounded like the defense played really well again. And so that does feel a little bit concerning for me that every single time there's a report about a scrimmage so far, yeah, there's only been 2, but it does seem like that's kind of what the offseason has been about, is that it's never like this guy played really well. Like nobody's kind of emerging. Even if it was like Billy Edwards had a good day and then MJ Morris had a good day the next day, even if it was like kind of inconsistent with who's having a good day, I never am hearing about somebody having a high-level day. So that is a little bit concerning. We'll see how the spring ball game looks. That's going to be a big indicator. I think that's going to be something – I'm going to put a lot of stock into it, but I also got to know that there's practice every single day and that fans are going to put a huge amount of stock in it. But there's practice every day. We don't see them all the time, and we don't see them nearly enough to really, honestly, I think, make a real decision. Obviously, I have my opinions based on the games and some of the practice reports that I hear, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to say anything when you're not there every single day to make the decision overall. I want to touch on all the Maryland basketball transfers that transferred out. Will we miss any of them? I will tell you about that after this ad from FanDuel and Monopoly Go. Okay. Well, yeah, I have a competitive side. We all do. My competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloading over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly, where you play on not one but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing around with your friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also heist their values of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in on the action with your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your best place to bet on every game. I don't know if you guys watched any of the playoff games these last couple of days, but they're great, both the NBA and NHL. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, so I want to talk about the Maryland basketball transfers. Everyone that transferred out, I think I deserve to give them a little bit of a kind of a goodbye, if you will. And I want to talk about, will we miss them in the future, where they kind of stand? And also, I'm going to say, did we fail them as a program? I do have mixed feelings about all these different guys, but I don't think we'll miss anybody like hard. I do think we could regret some of the decisions we made, but with the portal class that we brought in, we have a top 6 or 5 portal class in all of college basketball. We have a chance to be a really good team next year. I really think we can be top 15, depending on how guys progress and how good players how players adjust to the Big Ten and how Kevin Willard implements those different players. But I really don't think we'll miss anybody entirely. but I do think we failed a couple of them, and I do think that we could potentially miss a couple of players. Let me kind of explain. So I'm going to talk first, starting with Noah Batchelor. It's interesting. He's going to Buffalo, which is a good spot for him. I think he was a pretty highly rated recruit. Kevin Willard got him to switch from Memphis to Maryland, and for me, I think we failed Noah Batchelor. I think Noah Batchelor is a better player than we kind of allowed him to be. I think that there were spots where Kevin Willard just didn't instill confidence. I remember early on in the year, the UAB Davidson thing. I remember he played pretty well against UAB, and then the next game he was starting against Davidson, and then he turned over the ball a couple times, missed a couple shots, and it was like, nope, you're out. Like, he didn't play much the next game, and it's like, when we have a guy like that, sometimes guys are going to have bad games. And that's why I think Kevin Willard failed in instilling confidence in him. And that hurts when you're a shooter, and that hurts when you're that type of player. And I don't think we'll miss him because he never got to that level of player that we wanted him to be. And then we also are bringing in different players that kind of mock what he does in a lot of ways, like Miguel from UCF and some other players that we also have. Rodney Rice also shoots the ball at a really high level, but I don't think we'll miss him. But I do think that he's a guy that we failed overall, and I think he's a guy that could potentially be a really good player at Buffalo. I don't think we gave him quite the confidence that he needed to become one of the better players. Jamie Kaiser, he's a guy that's interesting because I think that we potentially could miss him only because I don't think we'll miss him based on his production that he's put up last year for Maryland because it wasn't very good. He struggled shooting the ball, and he was supposed to be a shooter. But we can look at this kid and be kind of regretful of him wanting to leave because I think he has a chance to do really good things at Butler. I think he has a chance to put up good performances at Butler in the Big East. And depending on what his role is, we might look at him and could this be an Ian Martinez situation where we look at Jamie Kaiser and say, dang, like he was a really high-level player. He was a top-end player for Butler, and we never allowed him to do that. And I think that we didn't fail him overall because he only had 1 year. It's hard to fail somebody in 1 year, but I do think that we could end up regretting the decision. I'm not saying we let him go. I heard that Kevin Willard did want him to stay, but just the decision to not kind of, I guess, maybe push a little bit harder, or just his decision to leave, we could ultimately be regretful of, and it could hurt a little bit when we're watching potentially tear it up at Butler, or we could be like, we were right about the kid. I really think it could go either way. We'll see with Jamie Kaiser. I do hope for the best for all these guys for sure. And then Maddie, I think we failed him. Ultimately, Maddie has elite traits, elite athleticism, elite length, and he just couldn't figure it out with Maryland basketball. And I think a lot of that has to do with Coach Willard. I don't know if Maddie was ever in the best positions. I know he'd never played a ton, but when you have a freakish kind of athletic player profile like Maddie's is, I think that's a guy you got to just figure out how you can get him into the game, figure out how to develop him overall. And Maryland basketball was never able to do that, so we felt the need to transfer and to go somewhere else. I mean, he wasn't going to have a huge role for us next year with Derek Queen and Julian Reese coming in, or Julian Reese coming back, Derek Queen coming in. But I still think we could have figured out a way to develop Maddie better. He doesn't have a bad stroke. He can shoot the three ball a little bit. I mean, it's definitely a lot of work, but I think he has a lot of natural talent overall. And then Jonathan Lamoth, it's just way too early for me to tell. He didn't play a lot last year, so I can't say we failed him necessarily. I don't want to say that it was like he should have played more, but I think he's a guy that we're just going to have to see. He's at North Carolina AT&T, which is an HBCU, so he has a chance to tear it up there, and I'm excited to see what he can do. But I think it's too early. But overall, I don't think we'll miss anybody because we brought in such a strong class. But I do think that we failed a couple of them, and we could have done a better job developing guys like Maddie and Noah Batchelor, and even maybe the younger guys like Kaiser and Lamoth throughout their freshman year. Maryland misses out on Connor Siegman. Is this a big loss? I will tell you about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute, like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I have been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the ticket and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute tickets and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Maryland loses out on Connor Siegman, the Wisconsin basketball transfer that I thought was going to be a really good player that Maryland could potentially want in the portal. So Connor Siegman was an interesting story because his freshman year at Wisconsin, he looked like the next big thing for Wisconsin basketball. He looked like he was going to be a high-level player all 4 years or however long he was going to be in college and for Wisconsin. He had a really good freshman year and really put himself out there after his freshman year. And then sophomore year went downhill. He didn't play much, didn't shoot the ball as well, didn't get as many opportunities, was hurt during part of the year, and he just didn't return to what he was freshman year. And basically, he decided to enter the transfer portal this year, and Maryland was in it. And this is a guy I wanted. I like guys that have more than 1 year of eligibility. And I like guys that can shoot the ball, and I thought he's a really high-level shooter. And I like guys that have played Big Ten basketball, and he's been doing that for the last couple of years. And I thought he was a really high upside type of player, and I thought hopefully Kevin Willard could fix him and was going to be able to allow Connor Siegman to get back to the player that he was. But he ended up committing to Nebraska this weekend. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking – I do wish that Maryland basketball was able to get Connor Siegman. We still do have one more spot left. We did get a spot for Tafara Gapari coming from Georgia Tech in the portal, which is interesting. It didn't feel like it was either Tafara or Connor. It didn't feel like that at all, but it might have been that Miguel decided to commit. And when he decided to commit, it was like him and Connor were really similar. And Miguel kind of took the spot. And Bruno Fernando really advocated Miguel that he go to Maryland. And I think Miguel fits really well. He had a really good year last year. Was the sixth man of the year in his conference, and he also averaged like 14 points per game. He's a guy that's going to be a really good player, shoots the absolute lights out, and he's really similar to Connor Siegman in a lot of ways for Maryland basketball. But I think it's just like you miss out on a guy that just had 2 years left, and I think had the potential to be a really high-level player if we could just find a way to find his freshman year back. And now we're going to play against him at Nebraska. I do think Nebraska is a good fit for him. I think that one guy that was on their team that was a really good shooter, I'm blanking on his name, Tominga. He was a really good player for Nebraska basketball, and I think Connor Siegman can bring some of that. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as him, but I do think Nebraska is a good fit. But we'll see when we play him. I did also like that. I just thought there was a spot for him. I don't think he would have started for us, maybe potentially, but there's also a side where it's like Miguel is more of a sure thing, and he's been doing it his last 2 years and then also the years prior to that at Kansas State. And so you could look at it and say that USF he's been doing really good at USF and then the last 2 years. And he also was a pretty good player at Kansas State, and he's been pretty consistent all 4 years. And while Connor Siegman has been inconsistent and it's had one good year, one bad year, and it's like, are we sure we can get him back? And so you definitely can look at it both ways. I'm not necessarily saying I prefer Connor Siegman, but I do think that he had a really high upside as a player, and we still had a spot left is my thing. That's why I'm like, we did just kind of miss out on him as well. We do have another spot in the portal. It'll be interesting to see what Coach Loxley uses it on now. You could really kind of plug it in anywhere. Maybe I don't know if we get another big man. I don't know if we want another guard. I don't know exactly what Maryland basketball wants to do, but I do like where the roster is at. I think the roster is in a really good place, and I look forward to next year and seeing what we can do. But we did miss out on Connor Siegman, but we got a lot of other players that we gained, so not too worried. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball, so thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.